Well, good evening, everyone. Namaste. I'm always thrilled to address the Coptic Center. I think most, if not all of you, know that I've been at your son conferences over the years. I counted John as a dear, dear friend. I just thought the world of him, and I'm happy that the tradition is continuing. And so I hope that I might be able to inform you a little bit. I'm going to guess that some of you probably know a fair amount of what I'm going to share, or maybe even at least a little, and others may know nothing. So I'm going to assume until we get to the Q&A that you know a little bit about this, and we'll see where it goes. I'd love to take questions that are more in depth from people who have had experience studying yoga. So, what is yoga? If you ask the average person on the street, what is yoga? If you said, well, after lunch, I'm going to go and I'm going to do yoga, 99% of the people will assume that you are going to go somewhere that is darkly lighted, with nice new age music playing in the background. You're going to roll out a mat and you're going to get into some interesting positions. You're going to hold those positions. You're going to concentrate on your breathing. And you very well may mean exactly that when you say you're going to do yoga. But there are so many different kinds of yoga. What we're going to do tonight is delve into the yoga of Patanjali. Patanjali did not invent yoga. He systematized it. He took all of these various teachings from ancient India in the Hindu tradition and he consolidated them. He made them make sense. And the book that he wrote called the Yoga Sutras, and sutra means thread. So these sayings of his, they're kind of like proverbs. They're very pithy and they're very short. And he doesn't go into great detail. You can't just read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and get yoga because he knew that the most important way to learn about yoga is through a teacher, a guru. So he purposely left a lot of blank spaces, and this has given rise to multiple interpretations. Now, some people don't like that. If you come from a traditional Western background, theologically, you want complete conformity. You don't want a whole lot of disagreement. They'll say that it's okay to disagree on little things here and there. But when it comes to the big stuff, there can be no disagreement. If you disagree on a very strongly held dogma, quite frankly, you're no longer a part of the family. But in the Hindu tradition, a friendly debate, discussion, the acknowledgement that different people are going to be attracted to different ways of expressing their spirituality, that's just all a part of it. So again, Patanjali just gives us little hints here and there, but enough to get us going. And he defines yoga this way: Yogaschita Vrita Nirod. That's Sanskrit, and it means yoga is the cessation of movement. Yogas chitas vrittis. Vrittis are vortexes, right? He acknowledges that in our daily life, we are constantly on the move, and our mind is constantly on the move. So his teaching of yoga is more than anything to quiet the mind, to distill the mind. And he came up with, one might call it a recipe, but again, these recipes, or this recipe, really needs to be taught from a teacher to a student, right? As I say, you just can't open up his book and go, oh, great, I know yoga. So we're going to go over the basics of Patanjali's teachings and see where we end up. All right. Okay. So let's click on yoga. It's called an eight-limbed path. Now, this doesn't mean that you go necessarily from one to two to three to four. By the way, I'm a bit under the weather tonight. I'm quite happy that this is zoomed. If this was in person, I would have had to have postponed it. So we're fortunate. I'm just fine to do this. So the very first thing that Patanjali recommends in the study of yoga are called the yamas. They're a list of six thou shalt nots, I call them. All right. So if we were going to compare this to the Judeo-Christian tradition, the Ten Commandments, some of them are prescriptive, meaning this is what you do, and some of them are proscriptive. Don't do that. It's not healthy for you. These are the thou shalt nots. So, for instance, ahimsa, when you put the letter A in front of any word, it negates it. So, uh, nonviolence and compassion toward all beings. Now, this can be expressed in many different ways. There are some people who take ahimsa so seriously that they do not kill insects, they do not kill any animals. Of course, they're complete vegetarians, and they might not even try to protect themselves or others if being attacked. So that's on the extreme side of the spectrum. But most people, they're somewhere in the middle where they certainly don't encourage violence, but at the same time, they would use force in certain situations to protect the innocent. All right. Then there is satya, not lying, truthfulness in speech, thought, and action. And this means a lot more than just not lying, although not lying is certainly at the heart of this. See, it says truthfulness in speech, thought, and action. So you are attempting to practice non-lying, even in your own mind. You can't lie to yourself, and you can't lie in action, right? So sometimes we lie uh, by our words. No, sweetie, I never saw that woman before in my life. That would be one way of perhaps lying. But lying in action is when you're actually seeing that woman. You never told your wife that you don't see her because she doesn't even know she exists, but that certainly is deceptive. If a spouse believes their spouse to be faithful and the person is not faithful, then that is in fact a lie. And then asteya, non-stealing, respecting others' belongings. It's also, of course, in the Ten Commandments, we also have the frailty of covetousness, right? The last commandments are about not coveting another one's goods or spouse. Well, here the same thing goes. You're not talking about simply not stealing. You're also talking about not harboring thoughts of resentment, not harboring thoughts of greed and jealousy. Next is brahmachari, moderation in sensory energy and physical pleasures. Now, this has meant different things at different times in some schools and other times not. Brahmachari is also the name of a, a status, a monk's status. So let's say I wanted to be a Hindu monk. In a lower stage, I would be a brahmachari. That would simply mean that I'm a monk. I have committed myself to a celibate lifestyle, but I haven't made a lifelong vow yet. I may have made a vow for several years. Um, and then when I have reached the stage where I'm a little bit more mature and I uh, decide that, okay, this is the life I want for the rest of this incarnation, then I become a Swami. So Swamis are full monks. That's men and women. Oftentimes, women are referred to as Swaminis. Other times, they're also called Swami, so it doesn't matter. One is the same as the other. But that's simply for monks. But we, as householders, I don't believe we have any monks or nuns on this Zoom call. Those of us who are householders, we also have to practice a form of brahmachari. So that means not simply refraining from sexual activity with someone not our spouse. That also means moderation within the marriage. And you have different gurus, different teaching traditions that explain that and see that differently. All right. So the teaching tradition that I come from, basically, our teacher, which is Paramhansa Yogananda. Some of you know I'm a part of the Paramhansa Yogananda movement, and Yogananda was a colleague of Hamid Bey, and he did not extol the virtues of being overly strict on that. He just said the more you can refrain from the overuse of sex, the more you can develop spiritually. But it does not mean that you have to be absolutely celibate. Now, if two people are married, they've been married for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and they come to a mutual understanding that they will, for the rest of their marriage, live as brother and sister, that's their decision. Nobody should be making that for you. Whenever you've had, and I've seen this before, whenever you've had spiritual organizations who try to control the sexual activities of the adherents, oftentimes you end up with a great deal of hypocrisy and a toxicity within the system because a lot of people simply can't keep up with the expectation. And finally, aparigya, non-possessiveness, non-greed, cultivating contentment. Cultivating contentment. That is, being happy at the moment with what you have. Now, this does not mean that one cannot be ambitious, that one cannot see oneself living a higher standard of living. But there are certain rules that one needs to follow to get from uh, here to there. Now, especially, of course, when people are in dire poverty, you can't expect them to say, well, this is my lot in life. I want to practice apaigraha, so I'm not going to be possessive, I'm not going to be greedy, and I'm going to be content with what I have. If it is organic, if you genuinely think, no, I don't need any more than I have right here, again, it's like sexual activity. You are the one who gauges what you need in life and and follow through on that. Okay, and let me just say one thing about this. There are a lot of people who practice yoga and they're engaged in a variety of spiritual practices. And some of them forget that before anything else, you need to be a good person. That all of the meditation and all of the spiritual practice that you include in your life, it certainly may help, but it's not going to get you very far if you don't practice these very important moral precepts. After the yamas are the niyamas. Just a second here. Let me go. Okay, so the niyamas would be prescriptive. Okay, practice for self-discipline and internal yamas. There we go. So these are the do's in the same way that the Ten Commandments has do, honor your father and mother, do observe the Sabbath day. These are the thou shalts. So we're looking for purity of body, mind, and environment. That's saucha. Uh, uh, when people say in the Hindu tradition, cleanliness is next to godliness, they're really serious about it. Because not only do you need purity of body, which means eating the right foods and having a clean environment, you're not only just being clean for the sake of cleanliness, but you're also performing a spiritual duty. Santosh, this correlates a good deal with apigraha, right? So apigraha is the negative expression of non-possessiveness, and santosh is the positive uh, side of that. Then tapas is austerity, self-discipline, and perseverance. So this is where when we do fall into situations that are not necessarily pleasant for us, we need to man up or woman up, as the case may be, to practice that austerity, that self-discipline and perseverance. Again, you can do that at the same time, work to change your circumstances. We have that free will. But when we are in the challenging circumstances, we must do our very best to maintain that presence of mind and acceptance. Svadhyaya, self-study and introspection and spiritual study. So that is pretty self-explanatory, right? It is, as I believe Socrates said, know thyself. So this is engaging in very honest self-conversation. It's especially valuable when you're able to honestly tell yourself, honestly come to the conclusion of what motivates you in a certain situation. So, for instance, somebody may tick you off for some reason or another, and you respond in, say, a negative way. And when somebody asks you why you did that, you may say one thing, and you may even kind of sort of believe it. But with introspection, real introspection, you find out the true motivation of what you're doing in your life. And hopefully, you're able to say, this shouldn't have happened. This is a part of me that isn't very pleasant. And I'm going to do my very best to cultivate the appropriate virtue. And then finally, Ishvara Pranidhana, devotion and surrender to a higher power or universal consciousness. Often we call that God. Yoga is kind of hazy about God and allows for the individual devotee to come to whatever conclusion we might come to about the existence of a God, which is why this is written in the way it is. Surrender to a higher power or universal consciousness, something that somebody in a 12-step program can do. Let's see here. Now let's go to, excuse me, asana, perfect posture. Now this is a little tricky because a lot of people see asana in this list, and they assume that you have to perfect hatha yoga. That is not true. Patanjali does not talk about hatha yoga. He does not talk about getting into the tree or the mountain or the cow or the cobra or any of those things. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't describe any posture except maintaining a seated posture with an erect spine and not straining. Right? So when you see people in a meditation posture, if they're doing it right, The spine is erect. The chin is parallel with the floor. The eyes are gently uplifted. The palms are resting comfortably upturned on the lap. And they go into meditation. Now, it just so happens that the physical postures we refer to as hatha yoga are designed to strengthen the body, improve flexibility, and prepare the body for meditation. But it's optional. And over the centuries, people have said, well, if we have to stay in this posture, this asana of Patanjali for an extended period of time, an hour or more, well, we need a little bit of physical preparation, and hatha yoga is excellent. As you heard in my introduction, I taught hatha yoga at Muskegon Community College for 15 years. I continue to practice it. I love it, but I want to be very clear that a lot of people who practice Patanjali's yoga do not necessarily practice hatha yoga. It's it's an add-on. And here's another thing too, for people who do practice hatha yoga. You have to be very careful because it's so easy to develop a sense of pride and even narcissism when you are able to get into these incredibly complex poses. I personally, I stick to the easy ones. I have no great interest in being one of these people who, can stand on my head and twist my body multiple different ways. I have no desire to join Cirque du Soleil. I'm good. Thank you very much. So again, I'm not trying to talk anybody out of it. I'm simply saying it is optional. Okay. Now, next comes pranayam, mind, breath, and body. I hear that you have a breath workshop coming up. That's great. But pranayam is not simply the breath. There's a whole lot connected with it. There are various forms of pranayam. The goal is to be able to control. So prana is this electricity that runs through the entire body. It's what keeps us alive. And we actually have many different pranas working in our body. We have the prana of breathing, of inhaling and of exhaling, the prana of digestion, the prana of crystallizing the food, and the prana, because that's what takes the vitamins and minerals out of food. It's prana. And then we have the prana that evacuates the waste. So all of that works together. It brings clarity to mind and the body, whatever form you choose. However, most yoga teachers will acknowledge that there should be no extremes in breath or body. By that, I mean holding the breath to a ridiculous amount of time is by no means advised. It should feel natural. Now, some really, really accomplished yogis are able to actually stop breathing in meditation. I've known a couple. It's a very rare phenomenon, but I genuinely believe that it can be done. But it's not done by simply holding the breath. It is a condition that develops naturally. And you don't always hear this, but practicing with deep devotion, people can get so they can get so hung up on doing techniques of meditation. Same with playing a musical instrument, right? You may have heard that a a critic will say, "Well, yes, this concert pianist knows how to play the piano, but it's all technique. There's no soul there. No, she's hitting all the right notes at the right time, but something is missing." People who practice these techniques without a sense of devotion and humility are only exercising half of their potential. So it's important that you do that. And also, again, never mistaking the technique for the goal, right? You practice a technique for a while. So, if I'm meditating for an hour, I may practice a pranayam technique for a half hour, 40 minutes, but then I let that technique go and I maintain the silence, the joy, and the devotion. And of course, it's really important to maintain a solid practice. A lot of people, they engage in yoga practice whenever somebody special comes to town. Oh, this great yoga teacher is here in town. Come on, let's everybody go see him. They have a great afternoon or evening hanging with this person, practicing, and then they go home and they forget about it. It's like, well, when he comes to town again, that's what I'll do. No, but you get, I don't want to say you get nowhere, but you get not very far when you practice haphazardly. It really does. For real changes to happen in your life, needs to be something that you do every day. Pratyahara absorption. Now, I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on the next few because these stages on the eight limit path are so esoteric that it's very hard to communicate. You kind of know it when you're experiencing it. So you're practicing pranayama. You're slowing the breath down. Let's not talk about stopping the breath, but you're really, really slowing your breath down. You're slowing your thoughts down. At some point, you come to the stage of pratyahara, right? Turning awareness inward by withdrawing the senses from external stimuli. So you ever notice, like, if you're really, really absorbed in a movie and there are people behind you who are talking, and your friend who came to the movie with you is like, my God, I wish they'd shut up. And you're like, who? Those people behind us, can't you hear them? Oh, oh. Well, now that you mention it, yeah, I can. Because your friend just took you out of the absorption that you had with the movie. I'm like that with my wife. First of all, she has Wonder Woman hearing, and I use hearing aids. So, she can, the slightest thing can really bug her. And with me, it's like, oh, do, I'm fine. So you begin with little things like um, not really noticing the wind or the rain if it's outside. And then you also notice freedom from time when a half hour or an hour feels like 5 minutes. And as we say, the body gets out of the way. You're no longer feeling any aches and pains that you might seated for an extended period of time. Then dharana, that's solid concentration. And again, I can only do so much in differentiating between pratyahara, dharana, and then we're going to go into dhyana after this. But but some of this is you practice focusing of the mind on a single point or object. You can use the breath, a mantra, a light, and a sound, and you become the breath, you become the mantra, you become light, you become a sound. That's solid concentration. I often talk about driving with the radio on. So, for instance, you're driving down the road, you're on I-96. You've covered this ground a gazillion times in your life, and it's pretty easy. The traffic is light. You got cruise control, and you're listening to the radio. Now, at some point, you may find that you're listening to the radio. Your concentration is on the radio more than it is the driving, right? That happens to me all the time. But then, what happens if it starts to snow and all of a sudden there's ice on the road? You know what I do? I turn the radio off. I cannot drive on treacherous ground if the radio is on. I am so focused on everything. I'm focused on my speed. I'm focused on what's in front of me. I'm focused on keeping the car in control. So let's do this. Imagine splitting the difference. where you need, let's say traffic is a little busier. Traffic's a little busier. You have to keep your mind focused on driving more than usual. And yet you're listening to the radio too. But the driving is what takes up most of your brain, and the radio, maybe 10 or 20%. So if you've got 80% of your attention on driving, think about having 80% of your attention on the breath, on a mantra, on light, on sound. And then maybe you may have a little bit of chatter in the background, what we call the monkey mind. But what we're striving for is to go beyond that space where the monkey mind is completely dominant. It's 80, 90%. And then every once in a while, you think of the breath, you think of the mantra. So when you've got that, uh, you've got that concentration where you're 80% there, even 70% there, and yeah, a little bit of chatter is going on in the background, you're moving in the right direction. And you want to dive deeper into a sense of timelessness. And then dhyana, that is meditation or concentration upon divinity. So you're taking that mantra, you're taking that light in your sound, and you're moving it to something a little bit more tangible, right? As it says here, an uninterrupted, steady flow of consciousness toward the chosen object of meditation. The chosen object of meditation. And for those of us who have a spiritual nature, that would be some form of God. You go beyond mantra, breath, light, etc., toward the object of our affection. You are overwhelmed by that divine presence. And then we come to the final stage, which is samadhi, ending with endlessness. This is the ultimate state of union, blissful consciousness, self-realization. There may be more than two stages, but I know of two, sapikalpa and nirpakalpa. Sapikalpa is when you reach this powerful state of union, but then the meditation ends and you go about your daily tasks, and it feels good, but you're definitely in a different frame of mind. Nirpakalpa is that unbroken. You arise from your meditation seat, and yes, you can still drive your car, you can still go to work, you can still make dinner, but there's something deeply powerful going on that just does not leave you. There is this joy, this divine presence that you just know is there. And as it says here, the meditator, the act of meditation, and the object of meditation become one. And very quickly, I think I only have one more slide, and then we'll go to Q&A. There are four main paths. Ka. Now, ka is an interesting word because, quite frankly, I have no idea how it got there. It makes no sense to me. I started to type something, and I didn't finish it. And I don't even know what that word could be. So, I know what it was. The first one is karma yoga. That's right. I wanted to put karma yoga, and I go, I screwed that up. It's down here that I want to write karma yoga, and I forgot to get rid of that. So anyway, that's my brilliance that you're looking at. Ka. I could totally make something up. It's this secret yogic organization and tradition that I'm about to initiate you into, but no, that's not true. So there are four other forms of yoga besides the deep meditation. Karma yoga, for those of you who have a Christian background, the Beatitudes of Jesus, that's perfect karma yoga, to clothe the naked, feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, visit the prisoner, as long as you're doing it without a sense of ego and without a sense of reward. Jnana yoga, that's more intellectual, appropriate study and reflection. Bhakti yoga, unbridled devotion. when you are able to see God as the divine lover, the divine mother or father or friend, whatever it is, and really feel powerful love. And then Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga is pretty much what we spoke about. So those are the four main yogas, and there's a lot of little yogas underneath that, but that's all we have time for. It is 7:45, so I did want to leave the leave the floor open for discussion. So I'm going to stop sharing. And for those of you who are still awake, I'm more than happy to answer a question or two.
Well, I think I'll be the first one to say I think you've completely overwhelmed my brain with all of that detail.
I'm sorry.
When you started, I thought I was doing good just knowing the difference between Hatha yoga and Raja yoga, and then you kind of showed me that that was just a tiny scratch on the surface.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. That is a lot of information in 45 minutes. But there are so many books written by very competent teachers on what I've just said. So, if this is of any interest to anybody here, you can easily find more and read things that go into the greater depth of what I've presented. There's books, there are internet sources. Yeah. So hopefully I just perhaps whetted your appetite.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm taking out of this is that it's a good introduction to see just how deep and rich that tradition is.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I can't emphasize enough. Once I get after pranayama, when I get into pratyahara and dharana and dhyana and samadhi, it's just I like to be able to share about things that are tangible to me, right? And here we're just going into areas that, quite frankly, I have not been in. Well, I've been Pratyatara. Yes, I have. But that pure focus of Dharana or Dhyana, I fall short of, and I don't mind saying that. But hey, if you get a really wonderful session, if you are in the state of Pratyatara for a half hour, an hour, you'll know it. You'll know it, and it will feel wonderful. Wonderful. And a lot of times it will manifest in some physical way. Sometimes you will feel like currents are shooting up your spine, or you're actually feeling the chakras, actually feeling them inside you. Um, so you don't have to go all the way into nirpakalpa samadhi to find this rewarding. So
Do you think when Hamid Bey was buried alive for several hours at a time, he was in Pratyana?
he might have been in samadhi, the final stage. I think
Because he trained he was trained in the temples, but I don't know I don't think any of us know the extent of perhaps what he added on to his temple training. Um, but he truly understood the breath, uh,
yes,
and
yes.
maybe he knew some yoga too.
Well, here's the thing. There's there's yoga that comes out of Hinduism, and there is yoga that comes out of many traditions. They just don't call it yoga, right?
Hmm.
So for instance, are some of you familiar with the Catholic mystical saint um, Teresa of Avila? Have any of you ever heard of her? Okay, she, I would say, was a yogi. If I was to tell her, hey, Saint Teresa, I think you were practicing yoga, she would probably have no idea what I was talking about. But when I read of her experiences, that's yoga. She actually talks about the currents in the spine shooting up
Hmm.
like a bullet in the spine. That's what she talked about. Well, that was yoga. She figured it out on her own, and a lot of people do that. So um, I suspect that since Yogananda and Hamid Bey had a relationship, they may have swapped some healthy information between the two,
Hmm.
right? So
Right.
maybe some of what Hamid Bey did, he got from Yogananda, and maybe Yogananda got some stuff from Hamid Bey. I really don't know.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I would have no problem calling him a yogi.
Hmm.
And Fred,
Definitely the self-mastery training that he took really did concentrate on the breath work and the results of what the breath work can do for you.
Yes. And
So,
and and John told me years ago that you have, I don't know if you refer to it as pranayam, but the cobra breath.
mhm.
Okay. The way he described it to me, I would call it pranayam. Maybe there's an Egyptian word for it. I don't know. But the way he described it to me, that's pranayam.
and
So,
Fred, what you referred to as your misstep in adding KA was
yeah.
really a God wink because that is the ancient Egyptian term for life force. And you're
Wow.
speaking to the Coptic, so there you go.
Wow. Now I just have to fight that demon pride. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. That's very good. Uh, and well, we have, if there are no more questions right now, there are a couple of other things that I can share. First of all, uh, now that, well, even when you met on Sundays, when you had your building, you met on Sunday evenings, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I remember. Well, for those of you who would like to attend something on a Sunday morning, like regular church-going folk, we do have our self-realization fellowship services every Sunday from 10 to 11. For those of you who are close to Grand Rapids or in Grand Rapids, we hold them at Aquinas College. And it's an hour-long service. It includes periods of meditation, periods of chanting, periods of scripture study with commentary, and a healing ritual at the end. It's very user friendly for people who, uh, they're not daily meditators. We have people who never meditated a day in their life, but the meditation periods during the service, we have 3 meditation periods, and none of them exceeds 10 minutes. So if you're interested in attending, please get a hold of me and I can give you the particulars. But the bottom line, 10 to 11 every Sunday at Aquinas. We were very, very fortunate. We've been meeting. Next year will be our 50th anniversary for having a chapter of Self-Realization Fellowship here. And for 25 years, we met at Marywood. People here know that Catholic center on Fulton that's
Mhm.
almost across the street from Aquinas. And then they repurposed the building that we use. And so we were out, and now we're at Aquinas and we have a beautiful space. It's a former chapel and it still looks like a chapel, but it's now used for a classroom during the week, but we re-sanctify it on Sunday mornings. So um, uh, uh, Peter and Alan know how to get a hold of me. And I would strongly recommend that you get a hold of me prior to coming. On rare, rare occasions, we change our location. We're actually changing our location at the end of the month. We're going to be at the home of my wife and me. That happens.
Fred, is there anything do we bring yoga mats or anything like that?
No, if you want to bring a cushion, you may. Most people meditate in a chair with their feet on the floor, but um, those of you who would like to meditate in a lotus pose, you can either bring a cushion. I mean, a mat there that's just, too big, really. But you can sit on the floor with a cushion, or this is what I do. Our chairs are great because they're really flat and wide. So our chairs are really great for sitting in a lotus pose. You don't have to sit on the floor to sit in a lotus pose if you don't want
Mhm.
to. But yeah, I would say the vast majority sit with the in a regular posture with the feet on the floor. I don't. I like a lotus
Mhm.
pose. But yeah. And we go out to breakfast afterwards. I mean, not everybody who goes to service every week goes to brunch afterwards, but enough of us do. And it's just a delightful way to meet more
Mhm.
like-minded people.
Mhm.
We are a small tribe in West Michigan.
What did you say? You kind of bleeped out there a minute.
Oh,
A small
tribe.
tribe. Okay. All right.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one of the reasons that I've enjoyed my association with you guys because, um, you know,
We're a small tribe too.
well, yeah. When I was saying small tribe, I meant all of us, all of those of us who fall outside the parameters of the standard Judeo-Christian tradition and look for a more mystical experience.
Mhm.
That's I will tell you this though, unless there are any questions, I have something that you might be interested in. In July, I actually addressed an evangelical megachurch outside of Chicago.
Wow. Okay, good.
I know. They invited me. They found me on the internet somewhere. And they invited me because they wanted to discuss the social, spiritual, and psychological dynamics of conversion. What motivates someone to leave their birth faith, especially when it's not just their birth faith, it's their growing up faith, it's their young adult faith, it's what they've been indoctrinated in and inculcated in. Uh, what motivates them? So they had me talk about my journey from Christianity to Hinduism, and they had an ex-Muslim talk about his journey from that religion to evangelical Christianity.
Okay.
And and there was no there were no arguments, no debate, nothing like that at all. It was like, okay, the ex-Muslim's name was Abdu. So, Abdu, tell us your story. How did you get from A to B? Okay, Fred, tell us your story. How did you get from A to B? And then the pastor who moderated this asked us deep philosophical and theological questions. How does your religion respond to the problem of evil, sin, the nature of God, our relationship with God, afterlife? And so there was no, I'm right and you're wrong in the whole thing. So there wasn't a winner or a loser.
Hmm.
Although I got a few more laughs than he did, but uh, actually I started when he gave me the floor for the first time. I said, "You have to understand, I'm in a bit of a compromised position here, because here I am telling you about why I rejected your tradition and landed somewhere else. That's a little dicey for me." I said, but to anybody here who in their single days may have broken up with someone, of course, the first thing the dumped person says is, "What is it about me that's making you dump me?" And what do you say? It's not you, it's me. So when it comes to leaving Christianity for Hinduism, it's not you, it's me.
Well, I think too. I think a lot of us have had the Orthodox upbringing, and for me personally, I have no ill will about my upbringing.
Oh
I,
no.
I still I will go to church with my family or whatever. I think my answer was my soul needed more. I wasn't aware that I needed more, but I was given the opportunity to learn more, and I did, and it felt right.
Yeah, of course. I've always had a very respectful relationship with my former Catholicism. Always have. I mean, sometimes some church leader will say something that'll drive me crazy, but overall, I'm just fine with it, and I'm very happy that I had the experiences that I did. So,
Right.
oh, looks like it's that time, everyone.
Okay, well, thank you, Fred, for speaking with us and sharing your wisdom tonight. Lots of information, and it's good. It's all good.